Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Donzell Robinson. It is my pleasure to welcome you to West Palm Beach Equity Summit and to introduce you to your mayor, Mayor James. Mayor James, good morning.
Good morning, Donzell, and good morning to everyone out in the audience, and welcome to our inaugural Action Summit. I am so excited about today. I could barely contain myself. This is going to be an event that is unprecedented in our city's history. You know, when I introduced the concept of the task force, my primary goal was to create a platform whereby we as a city could candidly discuss who we have been, who we are now, and who we want to be. And at the end of the day, and I made this clear to the co-chairs and the task force members, I wanted the task force to present to me and the commissioners policies that are certainly well thought out, well vetted, thoroughly vetted. And I didn't want them to just be limited to what they perceived was possible, but I wanted the task force to allow themselves to think big about what our city could be. But you know, this conversation could not happen just at the task force level. It needed to involve, quite frankly, the citizens, the residents, the community of West Palm Beach. And so here we are today, about to embark upon a historic event. You know, as we went through this pandemic, however, it became a challenge as to how could we pull this off? How could we have this conversation with as broad array of people as possible while social distancing and complying with all the mandates of the CDC? And I'm so excited about the solution and meeting design that's been created by our engagement consultants, Donzell Robinson and Justice and Sustainability Associates. I'm confident that we will begin the necessary work of becoming a better vision of West Palm Beach and creating a city where everyone is treated more equitably. Indeed, we will be well on our way to building a community of opportunity for all. I certainly want to thank my staff, Tiffany, David, my communications team, the co-chairs, Michelle Diffenderfer and Patrick Franklin, the task force and subcommittee members for their commitment to helping us move in this direction. We have a long day ahead of us, and I want us to get started. So I'm going to turn it over to the co-chairs, Michelle Diffenderfer and Patrick Franklin, who will introduce a facilitator for today's meeting, Donzell Robinson. Thank you again, everybody. Let's get to work.
Thank you, Mayor James. And we join you in welcoming everyone taking time out of their day to join us. While Donzell will walk you through the day and explain how we proceed, we wanted to give you a brief update on the progress of the task force and invite you to become part of the conversations that will begin today.
Thank you, Patrick. To date, we have had 3 task force meetings, and each subcommittee has had at least 1 meeting. You are invited, the community, you're invited to join us through Zoom for the task force and subcommittee meetings. We also want to invite you to visit the task force's website at WPB-Equality-taskforce.org. We will return later to discuss how we will use the information that you give us today and next steps.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry, so we really want to get started, and we're delighted to have you all join us, and I join everyone and who indicated that. One of the things we need to do is, so it looks like I apologize. So, you know, we ask you to indulge us as we patiently get through this. We're on the wrong slide. We're in the morning slide. We have to advance all the way to the meeting slide. Excellent. There we are. And so, you know, like I said, thank you all. We're delighted for you all to join us. My name is Donzell Robinson. I'm with Justice and Sustainability Associates. And like I said, it's a bit of an experiment, and you know, to do this type of meeting, you know, in its entirety online. And so, you know, one of the questions that we're answering today is if we're able to replicate a meeting that would normally happen in, you know, a high school gym or around dozens of tables. And while the mayor shared the purpose and outcomes for today, they bear repeating. Next slide. So our purpose is to support stakeholders from all parts of West Palm Beach in talking together and learning from each other. The intent is to simultaneously have facilitated conversations in the 5 policy areas, which include criminal justice, education, with workforce, finance, banking, and industry, health, and real estate and housing. Each participant will have an opportunity to brainstorm ideas, assess priorities, and examine these policy areas through the lens of equality. So how will this be done? So you have before you the agenda. So one of the things, the first thing we're going to do is, ask who's in the room. And so I want to take a minute to just kind of make sure that, people who need Spanish speaking interpreter services, there should be a translate globe at the bottom of your screen, and I'll walk through that you can click to be able to hear the Spanish speaking interpreter for this process. I also want to give a heads up, some of you all will be participating in a Spanish dominant language working group. You will have an interpreter to interpret in English for you while you're participating. Again, our goal is to make this process as accessible as possible. So we're going to, first identify who's in the room through some polling. We're going to get, a little information so that we understand, who's participating. Then, as what has already happened, the mayor and the task force will kind of come back again and touch base on, the purpose and intent. The mayor's done that, and the task force will kind of drill down on that a little later. We'll give you a quick baseline presentation for all 5 of the policy areas, and we've discussed that. We'll quickly go into the first conversation around the critical priorities. We'll take a break, and then we'll have our follow-up conversations, and then we'll kind of move through the end of the, we'll have a Council of Elders presentation that gives a historic context of, the city of West Palm Beach. We'll then come back and allow you to prioritize some of the items that have come out of your discussions. You will quickly then go back into a discussion and talk about the challenges and strategies for the priorities that you have ranked and for your top priority. The mayor then will kind of give a state of West Palm Beach. Unfortunately, because of the time, I originally wanted to have a little Q&A, but you will be able to put questions in the chat that we'll make sure get answers. And then, like I said, we'll give you some sampling reports for the policy areas. And then the mayor and the task force will talk about next steps, right? So we have breaks built in, but if we're behind time, we may not be able to take them. We ask you to self-manage. Whenever you leave for a break, we ask you not to stray too far because we really want you to participate in the day and move forward. So next slide. So how do we do this successfully, right? And so there are a few rules that we're asking you all to kind of adhere to as you do these discussions. And so the first one is, speak openly and honestly. We use the term brave space, right? The space may not feel completely safe. We'll do everything we can to allow people to feel heard, but the space absolutely is an opportunity for you to articulate your thoughts, articulate what's going on, and it's an opportunity to listen attentively, carefully, and respectfully to everyone else's thoughts and opinions, right? Because of the number of people, and there are going to be about 11 or 12 people in each of the breakout rooms, and the facilitator is going to, try to make sure that they can capture the ideas from each person. We're going to ask you to keep the comments while whole and rich, as brief as possible. And of course, we're going to ask you to stay focused on the conversation that is being had, right? Explore differences respectfully, but of course, our goal is for you to look for common ground. But for now, I want to turn it over to our co-chairs who are going to talk about our intent for the day. So Michelle, over to you.
Thanks, Donzell. The task force, and truly through the work that will be done by the subcommittees, will focus on identifying and helping address issues of racial and ethnic inequality in our city by first providing you, the community, with a baseline based on your experiences, as well as research provided by the Pew Foundation and our consultants. Equipped with that information, we will examine best practices and make policy and funding recommendations to the city to address racial and ethnic inequality in our city. Those recommendations will be based on the priorities that you all established at the summit today. Patrick?
As residents and stakeholders who have dedicated the time to participate today, we challenge you and commit to creating a space for you to have courageous conversations around these issues, to listen to others who may or may not share your experiences and contribute your ideas to create a way forward. In short, we will look at what was, what is, but more importantly, what will it take to create a West Palm Beach that will provide the opportunities and tools for future generations to find success. It is important that the task force take a clear-eyed historical look at our city, look to other cities for best practices for policies, and present to the mayor and commission our policy recommendations to help promote racial and ethnic equality throughout our city.
This task force is an opportunity for our community to come together to address the challenges of achieving racial, ethnic, and cultural equality, and to effect meaningful, transformative change that only happens if you, the community, remain engaged. So thank you.
It also cannot happen without the commitment and dedication of the other 23 task force members who are volunteering their time, expertise, and unique perspective to our great city. Michelle and I would like to express our heartfelt thanks to each of these community-minded, dedicated leaders. Thank you all for being part of this task force.
Great, thank you so much. So clearly the task force is invested in seeing real change. So now you understand how the day will flow, what we expect from you, and to make sure these conversations are fruitful as possible, we want to create a shared baseline on the 5 topics. To do that, we're going to turn the program over to the West Palm Beach Director of Neighborhoods First Initiative, Tiffany David. If we could please mute that if those who are in the tech team, who has put together quite an informative presentation. So Tiffany, the Zoom is yours.
Oh, mute, okay. Okay, are we all set now?
We are.
Okay, great. Thank you, Donzell. Good morning, everyone. Today, I will be walking you through our presentation on the 5 policy areas that the task force is focusing on. Just as a reminder, the 5 policy areas are criminal justice, education and workforce development, health, finance, banking and industry, and real estate and housing. And for each of these policy areas, the task force and its subcommittees are asking these questions. What racial and ethnic disparities exist? Why do these disparities exist? And how can the city of West Palm Beach close the gap? For this brief presentation, I'm going to start by sharing some historical food for thought. Let's take into consideration some of the root causes of racial and ethnic disparities and injustice. Next, we have brief videos to share with you on each of the 5 policy areas, and I'll also share some strategies that other cities are using to address disparities in their own communities. What I hope will become clear is how much these policy areas are interconnected. Health equity is related to education equity. That's related to equity in the criminal justice system, for instance. They are all equally important. Then you'll learn about the National Equity Atlas, a reporting tool that West Palm Beach will use to see how we stand in relationship with other cities. Lastly, I'll share some good news to inspire you as we move forward today and in the process of the work of the task force. Please keep checking the website for the task force because we're building an extensive multimedia history of racial ethnic struggle and resilience in West Palm Beach. We'll be launching this section in the weeks to come. The more you learn about our history, the more you'll notice a relationship between what happened centuries or decades ago and the legacies lived in the present. These legacies are reflected in the statistics I'll share with you today and in the testimonies of our local elders, which you will hear in a video we'll present to you after our first breakout session. Like other cities, West Palm Beach has a long history of racial and ethnic bias, showing up across multiple institutions and affecting Blacks and other people of color. Addressing root causes of inequity and the inequitable conditions in which people live, work, and play is critical to eliminating racial and ethnic disparities. For years and years, racial and ethnic bias has affected every aspect of daily life, from how students are treated in classrooms, how applicants are treated when applying for jobs, how renters or prospective home buyers are treated by real estate agents, landlords, or loan officers when looking for a new home, and even how people are treated when driving or walking down the street. Laws, policies, rules, and regulations in Florida and West Palm Beach specifically have long impacted people of color and especially African Americans. Early Florida laws permitted only whites to serve as jurors. Black police officers could only arrest Blacks, not whites. Racially biased laws and policies have helped maintain racial segregation, even though it is officially illegal. These expressions of racial bias still leave their mark on institutions and communities of today. Historically, lack of investment in Black neighborhoods has limited residents' access to resources, from grocery stores that offer fresh and healthy food to schools that have libraries or decent textbooks or opportunities to take the advanced coursework crucial to prepare students for college. Historically and in the present, racist stereotypes have also played a role in helping to maintain racial and ethnic disparities. These stereotypes portray Blacks and immigrants as dangerous, criminal, and lazy, while helping to prop up the idea that whites and whiteness are naturally lawful, law-abiding, safe, and hardworking. Moreover, residents of racially segregated neighborhoods are often treated as the cause of the poor condition of these neighborhoods, which detracts attention from the racially motivated practice and policies that led to these conditions in the first place. Stereotypes perpetuate myths that make racial inequity seem natural or justified. They hide structural and systemic racism. Predatory practices targeting Blacks and other people are not new. The history of Florida and later West Palm Beach reveal making profits at the expense of people of color, whether as free or underpaid labor or by the seizure of property and exploitation through financial scams. In 2006, the peak year for subprime mortgage lending in South Florida, Black families earning $200,000 or more annually were more likely on average to be given the worst kind of loan, a subprime loan, than a white family making $30,000 a year, according to research by a sociologist at New York University. So as you can see, and as you will learn from our task force website, the history of West Palm Beach gives context to the disparities we see today. It also helps explain why these 5 policy areas are so interconnected. When we understand our history, we'll also understand the drivers of poverty and economic inequity. Next, I'll share some more information on these policy areas. We'll start with a brief film on criminal justice.
The Criminal Justice Subcommittee will focus on racial and ethnic inequities regarding criminal justice in West Palm Beach. In our city between 2000 and 2014, blacks have been killed by police 5 times more often than whites or Hispanics. During the same time period, West Palm Beach police have fired guns at blacks in 45 incidents, with gunfire returned in only 4 of those incidents. During that same time period, police shot at only 11 whites and 8 Hispanics. In West Palm Beach, where 2 of every 3 homicide victims were black males, only 30% of those cases were ever solved. Studies have shown that in the United States as a whole, police officers are more likely to pull over black and Hispanic drivers, with people of color more likely than whites to be searched and blacks more likely than whites to be arrested. According to a 2016 ACLU report, in Palm Beach County, black and Hispanic drivers were stopped by county law enforcement officers for infractions such as a rolling stop or failure to signal. When a Palm Beach County community organization known as Peace spoke with some of those drivers who'd been stopped, many said they weren't told why they'd been pulled over, but had been asked questions like, "Whose car is this? And what are you doing in this area?" Racially motivated hate crimes are on the rise in Florida, but according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 2/3 of those crimes go unreported. Many low-income people of color who've been charged with crimes face further barriers in defending themselves. Pre-trial release often requires a cash bond, which may pressure defendants to accept less favorable plea deals.
This slide, next slide, please. Thank you. This slide lists some of the strategies that other cities are using to address disparities in criminal justice. Details about these strategies can be found on the task force website. Some cities are eliminating cash bail, for instance. Others are using what is called a racial impact analysis to evaluate sentencing decisions. Collecting more detailed data about race and ethnicity is helping cities identify where disparities exist. And there's growing interest in offering training specifically focused on addressing racial bias in the criminal justice system as a whole. Next is education and workforce development.
Inequities in education and workforce development in West Palm Beach are the focus of the Education Subcommittee. Statistics show that in our city's schools, black students are more than 2.5 grades behind white students academically, and they're suspended 4 times more frequently than white students. More white West Palm Beach residents graduated high school than Hispanic and black residents. Over 40% of Hispanics and 20% of blacks do not have diplomas, compared to just 6% of whites. In regards to college degrees, more than 60% of white residents have a bachelor's degree or higher, as do 37% of U.S.-born Latinos, 23% of immigrant Latinos, 13% of African Americans, and 11% of black immigrants. These disparities affect the long-term prospects for residents and the city as a whole. To strengthen a local workforce well prepared to perform and create the jobs of the future, it's critical to close persistent racial gaps in education.
Educational equity advocates are realizing the importance of making racial equity central to their decision-making. They are looking for ways to remove barriers and create a pathway to careers, jobs, and business ownership. They've also realized the importance of building a more diverse workforce. Finance, banking, and industry is another policy area the task force will examine.
The Finance, Banking, and Industry Subcommittee has been studying how socioeconomic factors contribute to racial and ethnic disparities in West Palm Beach. According to 2017 statistics, more than 40% of black residents and 25% of Latinos live below the poverty line. Many of those residents are working full-time jobs that do not pay a living wage. Just 44% of African Americans and 45% of Latinos earn $15 an hour or more, compared to 81% of white Americans. The median hourly wage for African Americans and U.S.-born Latinos is $14 an hour, with immigrants making slightly less, compared to $28 an hour for white Americans. Women across the board also make less, but the disparity again is striking based on racial and ethnic factors. Black and Latino women earn a median hourly wage of $13 compared to $27 an hour for white women. As for immigrants in West Palm Beach, Black immigrants earn a median hourly wage of $12, with Latino immigrants earning $13 an hour, but white immigrants, they make $30 an hour or more. Income inequality disproportionately impacts women and people of color since they are concentrated in low-wage jobs. In fact, the lowest paid workers in West Palm Beach are earning an average of $12,425 a year compared to an average of $201,000 annually for the highest paid workers.
You're probably noticing a theme by now.
The Finance, Banking, and Industry Subcommittee.
Thank you. You're probably noticing a theme by now, but a core strategy in this policy area resembles a strategy used in other areas, taking a comprehensive, big picture approach. Leaders in other cities are looking for ways to help people buy and keep their homes. They're also looking at different ways to build community wealth. They too are looking for ways to remove barriers to jobs and entrepreneurship. At the same time, they're focused on helping existing minority businesses grow and succeed. A critical priority is ensuring a living wage for workers, and financial education has become a priority so that people of color are not taken advantage of when it comes to financial scams. A fourth policy area is health.
The Health Subcommittee will focus on health-related racial and ethnic disparities in West Palm Beach. One eye-opening statistic that came to light, predominantly African-American neighborhoods in West Palm Beach have an average life expectancy of 67 years. Compare that to Jupiter, where the predominantly white population has a life expectancy of 90 years. One big contributing factor, Florida's health system. According to a recent Commonwealth Fund analysis, Florida's health system is among the worst in the nation. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, racial and ethnic discrepancies have been very pronounced, with the virus twice as rampant among Blacks and Latinos in the state than whites. In Palm Beach County, the infant mortality rate for African Americans is more than twice the rate for white non-Hispanics. And Black and Hispanic people are 5% less likely to have health insurance. People of color, especially African Americans, face health risks rooted in centuries of racial discrimination that have limited access to jobs, healthy food, safe neighborhoods, home ownership, and good schools. All these factors contribute to serious health challenges for individuals as well as entire communities.
Communities focused on health equity recognize the importance of building alliances between government and anchor institutions like hospitals, service providers, foundations, and universities. Collectively, they're looking at how to cultivate healthy communities, and not just health at the individual level. To address gaps, community leaders also realize they need more detailed health data. For instance, if you just look at Hispanics as one large group, you can miss health disparities that might exist between specific groups, like Cubans in comparison with Puerto Ricans or Mexicans. The last policy area being targeted by the task force is real estate and housing.
The Real Estate and Housing Subcommittee will focus on where people live, whether they rent or own, and why. In West Palm Beach, 37% of Latino residents, 39% of Black residents, and 59% of whites own homes. Renting has been problematic for many people, as our city has one of the highest eviction rates in the country. Home ownership is the main source of wealth for many Americans. Speculative finance and investor-driven entities own the majority of available housing, with profit being their motivation. Market rates have kept many out of the housing market, especially people of color, as they simply can't afford to buy. Some of those who did buy during the housing boom of 2004 to 2007 were misled into taking out loans that they couldn't pay back. According to Home Mortgage Disclosure Act statistics, during that 3-year period, South Floridians of color were more likely than non-Hispanic white borrowers to receive subprime high-spread loans. Borrowers who have those type of loans are more likely to default on them and ruin their credit because of high interest rates. As a result of many factors, people of color in the U.S. are significantly more likely than white people to experience evictions and homelessness. In Palm Beach County last year, there were nearly 1,400 homeless people on any given night. More than 4,000 children are believed to be homeless in our county. The Real Estate and Housing Subcommittee will focus on where people.
Okay, thank you. The strategies that other communities are adopting have a lot in common with those under finance, banking, and industry, as you can see here. I want to announce right now that the City of West Palm Beach is fortunate to have a new partnership with PolicyLink, the leading national organization tracking racial and economic equity. Its National Equity Atlas is like a report card that helps cities see how they're doing in terms of closing racial ethnic gaps. The way the Atlas works is by comparing what are called indicators. These are the numbers that show up in statistics. Indicators are the evidence, the proof that racial disparities still exist or that efforts to close the gap are working or not. PolicyLink has a working definition of equitable communities. They define an equitable community as one in which all residents, regardless of their race, nativity, gender, or zip code, are fully able to participate in the community's economic vitality, contribute to its readiness for the future, and connect to its assets and resources. Here are some of the indicators that PolicyLink uses to track racial equity. As you can see, they interrelate to more than one of our policy focus areas. But first, who is West Palm Beach? We have a rising Latino population, as you can see here with the blue bar, and a large population of African Americans and others of African descent. But the number of whites in West Palm Beach has gone down since 2000. 1 out of 4 West Palm Beach residents are immigrants. The population of immigrants in West Palm Beach is also growing. For the nation and our communities to thrive, we must fully protect people of color and immigrant populations and ensure access to quality education, services, and living wage jobs. Reducing barriers and achieving racial equity are our path to shared prosperity. Investing in youth of color matters for our collective future. Most seniors in West Palm Beach are white, but we've got a very diverse population of youth. Will our seniors invest in the education of young people of color? Research shows that when a large racial generation gap correlates with lower investments in education. Bridging the racial generation gap between a diverse youth population and a predominantly white senior population is critical to building a strong workforce ready for the jobs of the future. Another group of indicators in the National Equity Atlas relates to economic vitality. This graph shows that white and Asian households in West Palm Beach are making, on average, 3 times as much as Black and Latino households. Strong growth in middle wage jobs and rising wages for low wage workers are very important to economic vitality. Good jobs pay wages that can support families. Good jobs offer opportunities for upward mobility. The trend over recent decades has been much faster growth in low and high wage jobs than in the middle wage jobs, however. The number of low wage jobs may be increasing, but wages for these jobs have stayed pretty much the same. In West Palm Beach, you can work full-time and still live in a household with an income far below the federal poverty level. 1 out of 5 Black and Latino workers work full-time and yet still do not have enough income to both feed their families and invest in the future. In short, inequality is bad for everyone. Studies find that income inequality limits educational opportunities for low-income children. When people don't have enough money, they don't have any extra money to make purchases and support the local economy. Income equality has also been shown to harm health and well-being. It spurs a downward spiral into debt. And on the other hand, greater economic inclusion leads to more sustained growth, benefiting the entire community. As you can see with this slide, wage gaps are based on both gender and race and ethnicity. In West Palm Beach, the groups with the highest levels of unemployment are Black men and Latino women. Leveling the playing field is integral to building inclusive local economies. So is ensuring underrepresented entrepreneurs can access the growth capital, information, contracts, and networks necessary to grow their businesses and create more jobs. In fact, entrepreneurs of color are more likely to hire employees of color than other firms. They also generate increased economic activity in low-income communities of color. Another set of indicators tracked by PolicyLink relates to readiness. Next slide. Here you can see that in West Palm Beach, there's a big gap when it comes to who is getting a college education. 1 in 5 Black adults and 1 in 4 Latino adults has a college degree or higher. Building a strong workforce requires educational equity. Good jobs require ever higher levels of skills and education. And yet our education system is not adequately preparing young people of color to succeed in the knowledge-driven economy. Closing wide and persistent racial gaps in educational attainment and reducing student debt are key to preparing people for the jobs of the future. Too many students are dropping out of high school. Not accessing education and job experience early in life can have long-lasting impacts. They include lower earnings, worse health, higher unemployment for youth, and higher public expenditures and lower tax revenues for communities. Next slide. Researchers have found that the single most powerful predictor of racial inequities in educational achievement is the extent to which students attend high poverty schools, schools where most of their classmates are low income. Because neighborhoods remain highly segregated by race, Black and Latinx students are far more likely than their white counterparts to attend such high poverty schools. This is the case in the city of West Palm Beach. These schools are charged with educating children who need far more supports and services. At the same time, however, these schools generally have fewer resources, fewer skilled teachers, and less challenging curricula than schools with wealthier students. As you can see in this graph, about 7 out of 10 students in West Palm Beach are students of color. More than half of these students are enrolled in the free or reduced lunch program in predominantly Black schools. This rate is even higher. Another indicator is connectedness. Next slide. Housing is the single largest expense for households, and yet far too many people are having to empty their wallets for housing, particularly low-income renters. This map shows that in some parts of West Palm Beach, and especially neighborhoods dominated by people of color, 7 out of 10 renter households are using nearly a third of their income to pay for housing. High housing costs squeeze family budgets, leaving few resources to pay for other expenses, save for emergencies, or make long-term investments. Next slide. All neighborhoods should be communities of opportunity. People who live in high poverty neighborhoods have less access to jobs, services, high quality education, parks, safe streets, and other essential ingredients of economic and social success. This map shows that in some West Palm Beach neighborhoods, particularly in Black neighborhoods, nearly half of all residents are living below the federal poverty level. Histories of inequitable treatment and racial discrimination have helped maintain racial segregation to this day, as you can see in this map. Next slide. The last indicator I will mention today is economic benefits. As mentioned earlier, Greater economic inclusion leads to more robust and sustained growth. It benefits everyone. It is good for West Palm Beach as a whole. More racial equity in South Florida would more than double the income for Black residents and Hispanic residents. I've covered a lot here, but I want to reiterate the point of interconnectedness. Each policy focus area has a ripple effect on the others. Indicators from the National Equity Atlas can measure progress in more than one of these policy areas. Other indicators are described on the task force website where you register to attend the summit. And like I said at the beginning of this presentation, we must remember our history, the history that affects all of us today and that has led to racial and ethnic disparities that still affect us. Participating in this summit is a step towards making the change necessary for a better, more inclusive future. Last but not least, I'm excited to announce that Mayor Keith James has been selected as one of 14 accomplished Southern elected leaders for the inaugural class of E Pluribus Unum Fellows. The fellowship funds leaders on a year-long journey to address inequitable and discriminatory policies and practices within their communities. Fellows will expand their understanding of how to address racial and economic equity within communities. Each Unum Fellow will learn from nationally recognized experts, consult with peers across the South, and design and implement an equity-based project that will create sustainable, meaningful change. It's thanks to this fellowship that we have our partnership with PolicyLink. And we are looking to this information that is gathered here today to help guide the work of the task force and the subcommittees. This is yet another reason why your participation today is so important and valued. We will have access to funding so that we can focus on the recommendations coming out of the task force. Now, without further ado, I will let Donzell help get our first breakout session started.
Thank you so much for that information, Tiffany.
Sure.
So hopefully everyone is now ready to engage with your West Palm Beach neighbors in the small group. So you've heard a lot around all of these topic areas. You know, there was a lot of, as I saw in the comments, someone mentioned a lot of eye-opening information. And you know, so what we want to do now is quickly get you into your presentation, right? Based on the 5 areas. So the way this is going to work, and again, we're going to, as you could probably see, don't get nervous. Your name may have changed during the presentation. What has happened is a number has gone up beside your name. And what that does is indicate to our technical wizards in the background which breakout room to put you in. In addition to you being in there with the other residents, other individuals who live, work, and play and are invested in West Palm Beach, we also have a group of volunteer facilitators who will lead that conversation with you, right? And so if you once we get the opportunity, you'll see a button that says go into the breakout room. If you have, if you're not moved right away, just be patient with us and we will move everyone in as we go. So let's see what the conversation will be. And if we can get to the next slide, Emma, I greatly appreciate that. So for your chosen topic, right now we want you to think about, the information that Tiffany provided, and we want you to think about your personal experiences, right? And see those experiences through the lens of race, ethnicity, equality, and inequality, right? And based on the question we're asking you is based on your experiences, what do you see as the critical policy priorities of policy for your policy area? And what do I mean by that, right? When you think about what Mayor James has said and the co-chairs have talked about, and you think about your policy area, what are some of the things that you think they need to focus on first? What are the critical priorities of the policy area that you're discussing that they need to focus on first? So when you go into your breakout rooms, the facilitator is going to introduce themselves. They're going to ask you, they're going to present the question to you in the room, and then they're going to give each of you an opportunity to answer the question based on your policy area. And while they're you're answering those questions, they're going to be capturing that information, sending it to our theme team so that we can begin to process that information that you're sharing. So at this time, I'm going to ask our technical wizard for the city of West Palm Beach, Jason, to please, begin to activate the breakout rooms. You'll see your breakout room. We're going to have this conversation go for about 25 minutes. And so, we want you to lean forward, have a rich conversation, but we have to keep the conversation going because we have a lot to do. We're just getting started. And throughout the day, we're going to be seeking information from you. So you all should be moving into breakout rooms. And like I said, just be patient with us as we make sure everyone can get into the right breakout room. And again, you're going to be, as you're preparing to move, you're going to be thinking about, from your experience, what are the critical priorities related to the policy area that you are linking. So I see people moving, they're heading out, and I look forward to you all having a rich conversation for about 25 minutes. So if you, on your screen, you should see, go to breakout room now, please click that, and we're going to get you out. And for those who aren't, we're going to, you can go to the next slide. We ask you just to simply be patient because your breakout session 1 will be starting soon. Thank you. So we're going to welcome everyone back. And in a moment, we will be able to take a look at what you discussed in the first conversation. But first, we have a presentation that looks at the experiences of those who represent a living history of the city of West Palm Beach. We believe that their stories will help add perspective, and we hope you truly enjoy it. So again, I'm going to ask our tremendous Zoom team of Emma to advance the slide and start the video. And just awesome thanks to Jason from the city who's been supporting this.
Hi, I'm Tiffany David, Director of the Mayor's Neighborhoods First Initiative here in the city of West Palm Beach. Recently, the CEO and President of the Urban League of Palm Beach County, Patrick Franklin, and I had the opportunity to interview residents in the city of West Palm Beach about their experiences with racial and ethnic discrimination. We asked them to share with us what they experienced or observed in past years and what they'd like to see in the future. Starting with former school superintendent, Mr. Samuel Bruce Mcdonald.
I have with me today Mr. Samuel Bruce Mcdonald, who's been a longtime resident of West Palm Beach, his family and himself over the years. Mr. Mcdonald, thank you for being here with me. And just tell everybody a little bit about your background and who you are.
I was about age 3 in 1933. My father was killed at Lincoln Park, which is now Coleman Park. So here's a young mother with no real skills, with 2 boys, widowed. Mm-hmm. So my grandparents came to get my brother and me. I had 1 brother. So that interim, from around 3 years old.
Hi, this is Sally. I don't know what's going on.
9 or 10, was in a little rural area about 14 miles northwest of Ocala. But something happened in my family that forced my grandmother to come back to West Palm Beach around 1939. And I lived at 608 8th Street. The Sunset is 607. Mm-hmm. So I lived much of my young life right in front of the Sunset, where they're developing all of that parking space out there now. My mother kept my brother and me very active. It was either the church, school activities, Boy Scout, Junior Elks. So practically every day after school, we had somewhere we had to go. So I missed a great deal of problems that many youngsters of my age were having. But I would see things and I would observe things in this area of race relations, particularly from policemen. There were no Black, or at that time, Negro policemen. So the community was policed and almost infiltrated by white policemen. And many of them were very, I guess I will say, they were very aggressive. During the summer, I heard once that some policemen had some fellows that sit on a hot railroad track and they were branded across their rear end the rest of their lives. My father was killed in Coleman Park, at that time Lincoln Park, on a Sunday at a baseball game by a white policeman. So my beginning was not to like policemen, not to trust white folk. I got into a situation once because at Industrial High School, which is now Palm View, all students from Jupiter had to be bused, high school students in the West Palm Beach. We were having a play and I was asked to go to Jupiter with a friend to get one of the stars in the play. On the way to Jupiter, we passed a car, and of course, the driver said, "Look at that car, it's pulling over too far. If they're not careful, they're going to bank on A1A, very narrow." So he suggested, let's go back to see if we can help them. We go back, and by that time, 2 other cars show up, and they're all Caucasian men. And I'd heard of this name, but I didn't know what it meant. High Lawrence. He was a sheriff deputy or something. And the lady quickly said, "Those 2 niggers ran me off the road." And he started cursing, but by that time, we'd already called the Highway Patrol. And so she pointed to me and said, particularly that one, I don't know how she could say 2 of us were driving, but nevertheless, that's what it was. We had a convertible. And he got there and he started off about you so-and-so and so niggas driving expensive cars and home and whatever. By that time, the highway patrolman came. Tempers were getting high and he told me to get in the car, the patrol car, and told his friend to hurry back to school to let my principal know what's happening. They put me in jail. I have never been so humiliated in my life. That jail, he cursed me, he called me all kinds of names, nigger trying to go finish high school.
Let me ask you a question. And I want to thank you for what the information you've given me, because I can go on for hours listening to you. Imagine 5 years from now, if West Palm Beach became a place where no one had to fear unequal treatment based on race or ethnicity, what would it look like? What would you think it would feel like?
I'm not certain if that's healthy. I think race or one's identity has a place in life, but I don't think it should be used to deny people opportunities in life. I still would like to make my own choices, select my own friends. I don't want to be associated with people who don't want me or just tolerating me. I believe that the Creator knew what he was doing when he made different kinds of people. I don't think that happened with any Great Bang Theory either. So I'm not too sure if that's what's so-called equal. See, I'm not convinced that equality means sameness. In education, I was area superintendent. I supervised 27 schools in the South area once. And one thing that always will upset me is when the principals say, I treat them all the same. Here is a boy 2 grades behind, but you're going to treat him just like you're treating the child who's 2 grades ahead. And that's the way they saw equality, treating them all the same. So I think we're going to have that recognition. We eliminate the legal aspect, the law requiring us to do certain things because on this high degree of visibility. I heard something a few weeks ago that I have been toying with. All skin folk are not the same. All skin folk aren't kinfolk.
Well, I'm going to end it right here, but I'm going to call you again for some more talking like this, and we will continue this conversation, sir. Thank you.
All right. Peace.
Thank you, sir.
Longtime resident, businessman Jerry Arsenault shared his memories about growing up in the city of West Palm Beach. Please share a brief and specific story of a time when you experienced racial or ethnic inequity or discrimination in West Palm Beach.
I grew up in West Palm Beach. We moved here when I was 1 year old. I grew up in the Northwood Hills section in the 800 block on 30th Court. And when I was a boy growing up, our neighborhoods were segregated.
Right.
All right. That's not that long ago. In about 1969, our schools system was also segregated. And in that year, I think in the fall of 1969, when I was a freshman in high school, that was the first year that they made it mandatory throughout the whole state of Florida and Palm Beach County and the city. All our schools became fully integrated. That was not the case previously. Now, there was some schools that had African Americans in the schools, but it wasn't mandatory. So they implemented it at that time. So I can recall that in that time frame, here in West Palm Beach, we had race riots in 1970, 69, 1970, race riots. I can recall it happening on Okeechobee Boulevard as a boy, okay? Because it was on the news. And I used to watch the news with my parents, all right, growing up. And it was kind of amazing because as a youngster, you didn't really feel that. So that was my first time where I really started to see that.
What do you think is at the root of the experience that you described? Why and how do you think it happened?
Well, I believe that it was society in general. Growing up here in Florida, and I think throughout the South, and actually probably across most of the country too, many of our systems were segregated in the 60s and prior to that. And it wasn't until some of the civil rights movement of the 60s that we finally saw real change start to take place, mainly in housing and education.
Imagine 5 years from now, if West Palm Beach becomes a place where no one has to face unequal treatment based on ethnicity or race. Think about a specific day in that future, or even a time during that day. What would it look like? What would it feel like? And what do you think would be different if you were looking 5 years into the future in the city of West Palm Beach?
I really don't think in 5 years, you're going to change 100% of the people, not only in West Palm or in Palm Beach County or across the country. I think there's always going to be some racism. I think there would be more opportunity for minorities.
Okay.
All right. And that comes, that is happening over time, but it's still, I believe you've got people that are discriminate in hiring practices.
What or who gives you hope that West Palm Beach can become a more inclusive and equitable place for all who live here?
I truly believe that as we go forward over the next 5 years, but even looking out even further, I think more opportunity and training, advancement of skills starts at the high school level and will permeate moving forward. All right. That I think has been somewhat of a holdup. Our school systems, they don't teach trades. They don't have trade school anymore. Right?
No, they don't.
And I hear that from electricians and plumbing firms. I hear that all the time, that we've got people coming out at age 17, 18, and they have no skills. Okay. And granted, we all laugh and joke about taking a first job at McDonald's. There's nothing wrong with taking a first job at McDonald's, because you learn to show up to work on time, take orders, and you learn a skill. But you also learn teamwork, how to work with other people. And those skills that you learn in a low-paying job, turn around and you can use in another job. And as we enhance the availability of that, I think our society will be better. Also, I think for a number of years now, we've had minority participation in contracting here in Palm Beach County. Okay. I think that in and of itself has advanced tremendously the amount of minorities who have small businesses and get to participate in part of the American dream of having their own business.
For those who may have moved here more recently, many experienced cultural and language differences, as Mrs. Mirta Luaces explains.
Mi nombre es Mirta Luaces, yo soy editora de La Guía News, un periódico en español que se publica aquí en el condado, no solo en la ciudad de West Palm, pero en el condado. Yo me mudé para esta ciudad en el 1987, cuando mi esposo, ya fallecido, trabajaba para la Eastern Airlines y lo trasladaron para esta ciudad. Yo he visto el progreso, como esta ciudad, de una ciudad dormida del sur.
Por favor, comparte con nosotros un recuerdo breve y específico de una vez que usted tal vez haya experimentado inigualdad o discriminación racial o étnica dentro de la ciudad de West Palm Beach.
Bueno, solo un incidente una vez que íbamos por la calle Parker hacia Okeechobee y creo que había un policía midiendo la velocidad de los vehículos y nos paró, no sé por qué cosa, porque nosotros no estábamos a velocidad, y a la hora de decir que siguiéramos adelante, usó palabras profanas. Desafortunadamente yo no tomé ni el número del número de policía ni el nombre, pero ese es el único incidente que hemos tenido. De lo contrario, nunca hemos tenido ningún incidente desfavorable, ni con el departamento de policía, ni con el departamento de bomberos y rescates, porque siempre han sido muy amables con nosotros y nos han tratado bien. Yo creo que uno de los problemas que tenemos en cuanto a eso en la municipalidad es la forma en que cuando un agente de la autoridad detiene a una persona, no necesariamente para llevarlo preso, pero cuando lo para por un incidente de tráfico o por alguna violación, la forma en que el ciudadano conteste al policía tiene mucho que ver.
¿Qué cree usted que es la raíz de la experiencia de que acaba de describir?
Yo no creo que el policía haya actuado de esa forma porque notó mi acento, otro porque supo que somos hispanos. Yo creo, sabe Dios, a lo mejor tenía un mal día ese policía, sabrá Dios lo que le había pasado con anterioridad y actuó de esa forma. Pero no, normalmente cuando nosotros nos ha parado un policía de la ciudad de West Palm Beach, nunca ha sido irrespetuoso, siempre ha sido dentro de los límites del respeto, de hablarnos bien, de no hacernos sentir discriminados o porque me estás parando porque yo soy hispana y porque yo tengo el color de la piel diferente al tuyo.
¿Me podría nombrar una cosa que sí vea que se está haciendo bien para trabajar ese futuro más inclusivo?
Bueno, tengo entendido que se han nombrado más hispanos a altas posiciones en la ciudad de West Palm Beach, que ese ha sido uno de los logros creo que hemos podido obtener, no solo durante la administración del alcalde Keith, pero también durante la administración de su anterior administración, la señora Moyle.
Mr. Arthur Bullard explains more about growing up in the city of West Palm Beach under segregation and breaking barriers.
I have with me Mr. Arthur Bullard. Art, thank you for joining us to be part of the elder senior section that we're going to talk about for the City of West Palm Beach Mayor's Task Force. And Art, you've been a resident of West Palm Beach for how many years?
I've been all my life, 74 years.
74 years, outstanding. And just a little background, you've held various jobs, but I know you work for the city. You also were a postmaster for the area. Can you just give me a little bit of your background?
Oh, well, I was born here in West Palm. I was educated here with the elementary, high school, and the junior college, where I graduated with the AA degree. I worked most of my life, well, I worked 33 and a half years with the Postal Service. After that, I was in politics for a couple of years, city commissioner, vice mayor, and then I worked as an executive assistant to Mayor Lois Franco for 8 years.
Okay. Art, my first question is, can you please share a brief and specific story of a time when you experienced racial or ethnic inequality, inequity, or discrimination in West Palm Beach?
The black could not go down the Howard Park swimming pool and swim. We had Roosevelt swimming pool up at 15th and Australia, but Mrs. Bowie was, Miss L.E. Bowie was the president of the NAACP, and we went and integrated the pool. That's when a group of us young guys went down and, well, Ms. Bowie said, you're going to integrate the pool today. I'm just cutting this short. And unfortunate, whatever you want to look at it, I was pushed in the pool. So I was the first black to integrate that pool down at Howard Park.
At Howard Park. Okay. Well, what year was that, or just so we can have a reference?
Back in the early 60s, if my memory served me well.
Okay. And when you think about that experience, what do you think was the root of that experience? What really caused that? What made that happen?
Well, probably back in those days, you know, I hate to use the term, but we were living in what we call color town. You know, they was like from 1st to 23rd, from railroad to railroad. That was the area that blacks lived in, you know, during that time. And it was a time when, you know, the black police officers could not go out of their zone. And it was my understanding that they could not arrest a white person. Mm-hmm. You know, it was just confined. It was a confined area that we lived in back at that time.
Art, imagine 5 years from now, if West Palm Beach becomes a place where no one has to face unequal treatment based on race or ethnicity, what would it look like? How would it feel? I mean, you know, what would be different?
Well, but I tell you what, to answer that question, back when we experienced the opportunity to move in to what we call now Roosevelt Estates, that's the area I'm in now, things begin to change then were black, we had our own opportunity to begin to buy our own homes, not living in apartments or rental homes. So it's a new day, and now where you can live where you can afford to live, you can go where you can afford to go. So West Palm Beach has changed because there was a time back in the earlier days when Clematis Street was downtown for us. I remember some of the 5 and 10 stores had the colored and white water fountain. You had to go and drink out the colored water fountain. And as young guys, we would always say, we would drink out the white and then they'll run us away. You can't do that. I said, well, I don't want no colored water. I want some white water.
My final question is, what or who gives you hope that West Palm Beach can become a more inclusive and equitable place for all who live here? What gives you hope and inspiration?
Well, the most important thing that gives me hope, we're beginning to register, we're beginning to vote, we're beginning to speak up and speak out and to be a part of the whole environmental situation we're in. We are running for office. We're becoming a part of the system and not sitting back and just saying, well, if this happened, we are making it happen. We're not asking for a handout. We're asking for opportunity.
I have with me Ms. Edith C. Bush, a longtime resident for the city of West Palm Beach. Ms. Bush, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to answer some of our questions here. Ms. Bush, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yes, I'm from a family of 5 girls and 1 boy. My father was a deacon and the president of the NAACP. My mother was a missionary and a seamstress. And I think I got into politics from my dad because being the president of the NAACP meant so much to our community. And he was fortunate to have attended the funeral of Dr. King. And so we've just been involved in community events. There's a park in Andalusia, Alabama. And that is where, the bus boycott started in Montgomery. We lived 75 miles south of Montgomery. And so we were very much involved in the civil rights movement, because then we grew up in a segregated area at that time. I went to segregated schools.
All right. Ms. Bush, you were a school teacher here for how many years?
About 32 years. For 32 years.
32 years here. And you spent how much time in the city of West Palm Beach?
I came here when I was in 8th grade, stayed till I was in, I came to West Palm Beach when I was in 3rd grade and stayed till 8th grade, went back to Alabama and graduated from high school. And then came back to Florida to live with my aunt, because then we figured the schools in West Palm Beach.
It looks like we may have had a moment of technical difficulty. What we'll do is, there we go.
Yes, I'm from a family of 5 girls and 1 boy. My father was a deacon and the president of the NAACP. My mother was a missionary and a seamstress. And I think I got into politics from my dad because being the president of the NAACP meant so much to our community. And he was fortunate to have attended the funeral of Dr. King. And so we've just been involved in community events. There's a park in Andalusia, Alabama. And that is where, the bus boycott started in Montgomery. We lived 75 miles south of Montgomery. And so we were very much involved in the civil rights movement, because then we grew up in a segregated area at that time. I went to segregated schools.
All right. Ms. Bush, you were a school teacher here for how many years?
About 32 years. For 32 years.
32 years here. And you spent how much time in the city of West Palm Beach?
I came here when I was in 8th grade, stayed till I was in, I'm sorry, I came to West Palm Beach when I was in 3rd grade and stayed till 8th grade, went back to Alabama and graduated from high school. And then came back to Florida to live with my aunt because then we figured the schools in West Palm Beach.
So I apologize. So it looks like the video is cut short, and we really regret that. I think, you know, the rich conversations that you've heard were so important. And so what we'll do is try to get that fixed. You can go to the next slide, Emma. We'll get that fixed, and then if we have time, we'll play that as part of the closing piece. But we'll be assured that we will definitely put the video in its entirety on the West Palm Beach Task Force website for you to enjoy. So the theme team has indicated that it is ready. And what we're going to do, so I'm going to walk you through this, because what we are now going to do is we're going to talk about the ideas that you've come up with, and we want you to vote on those ideas so that they can be made into priorities. Okay. So by now in the chat, you're going to see a link to the poll. And so the way this is going to work is you see the link, Engage Co-Vision. You're going to click on that. If you're on your phone, we want to make sure that you are able to use that. And so one of the things we should be able to do is, Todd Erickson is going to start. Okay, we can see it now, Todd. If you could just make that a full screen, you get that worked out. So while Todd is bringing up the information, if you could click on the link in your chat, it will bring up the second window I talked to you about that you would need. And so you're going to be able to vote on each of these themes. So what you need to know is these are the high level themes of all the information that you shared. Please know that every comment that the facilitators recorded has been saved and will be forwarded to the task force. So none of the comments and ideas and thoughts that you shared during your discussion are lost. Okay, so we have them all. So we're going to go through each one. We're going to start with the themes from criminal justice. So based on the initial question, what are the critical areas that should be focused on for criminal justice through the lens of equality? Here are the themes, okay? And so they said, and we will post the link for the task force towards the end of the meeting. So it says, make policies and laws more transparent. Just so that we can do this in real time and we're not losing time, you can start voting on what we're going to ask you to do is to vote on your top 3 themes that you see. So you can read along here in the Zoom. You can go to the link. You'll see the same themes there, and you can read along there and vote. I promise you your sound will work no matter which window you're in. So please be sure, I'm just going to repeat this one more time. Please be sure to click the link that is in the chat. It's engage.covision.com/ELLC. It will take you to the exact window that you're seeing now in the Zoom room. The only difference is there you will be able to vote on your top 3 priorities. So with that being said, if there are any questions, please put it in the chat. Let's run through the priorities for criminal justice. So based on your conversation, you said that there's a need to make policies and laws more transparent, including information about funding, offer racial equity training for police officers so that they learn how to de-escalate situations and develop a sensitivity and understanding towards race and to race versus culture, track and provide racial data regarding all traffic stops, offer sentencing alternatives such as alternative programming for drug-related offenses, re-engage with the community policing programs, build restorative justice by creating opportunities for dialogue between offenders and the community, identify alternatives to police interviewing children in schools without their parents' consent or involvement, specific to the Public Safety Act, build and recruit a team of diverse police officers, including, by creating new hiring policies, specifically in the area of diversity, I believe, and then create opportunities for the community to engage in policing. For example, by establishing a community transparency board. So if you should be at this point, again, you should have clicked on the the link for the Engage Co-Vision, and you should be voting on which of these 3 policies most resonate, or which one do you believe are the priorities. Out of the, I guess it's the 9 or so that we have, which 3 are your top 3? And once we get to about 50% of the people voting, we're going to begin to look at the results. So we want to give everyone an opportunity to vote. Of these priorities that you all came up with today, which are your top 3? And I can already see that people are ready to engage in the second conversation. So many of the things that you were talking about, we're going to be able to really drill down into in the second conversation. So we have the link that was in there again. And again, all right, and so Todd, let's go to, right. So great, so it looks like of those who have voted, the top one is to create opportunities for the community to engage in policing through the establishment of a community transparency board. Then we also have that is tied with that, offer racial equity training for police officers so that they can learn how to de-escalate situations and develop sensitivity and understanding towards race versus culture. And then the third priority is to recruit a team of diverse police officers, including through the hiring policy. Awesome job. So now we're going to go to the next topic area. And again, you do not have to change if you're in the collaborative arts, you will see this kind of transition for you. And here are the themes that came out of the conversations for education and workforce development priorities. So these are the themes that came out of what you all said. So you should be able to see some of the things that were in your conversation in these themes. So the first one is offer career development and adult education opportunities beginning in high school it sounds like for workforce development, including internships and training. Build parent engagement with schools through parent education programs and teaching how to partner with schools effectively. Address poverty disparities and stigmas related to home life of parents and students. Help the school system provide support in the homes. Provide free after-school programs for students and parents, as well as culturally enriching field trips. And start these programs as early as kindergarten. Evaluate how school districts are defined and zoned to address location-based inequalities, including access to schools. Improve and update curricula and use textbooks that build a cross-cultural understanding and include bilingual materials. Attract and recruit qualified teachers by paying attention to their needs, like better pay, housing opportunities, etc. Becoming an employer of choice. Offering greater school choice and making application to magnet schools more inclusive. And finally, enabling schools to collaborate more with partnering institutions like nonprofits, churches, social services, other agencies, etc. So this is, please clarify school districts in the bullet boundaries, voting district, administrative district. So what we're going to ask, Deborah, because the conversation, we're going to ask each person to define district, and you'll have an opportunity during the education conversation, if that becomes one of the top priorities, and through the work of the subcommittee and the task force to really drill down in that in the future conversation. So if you see that solution as being a solution that applies at the voting district level or the administrative district, but I can probably say because it's education and workforce, we may be looking at the school district level. And the question is partly how do we define that? So again, we're going to ask people to look at these themes. You should be in your Co-Vision site and you should be able to vote. We're going to give you a little time to look over and vote on that. And Todd, when you think we've hit kind of a critical mass, or we kind of have some hierarchy coming out of that, you can begin to show us the results. But please, we encourage everyone who can vote to please vote. And so again, if you're not in share screen, oftentimes Alt-Tab will get you to a different screen. We want you to be able to toggle between the Zoom meeting and the COVID, because you cannot vote from your screen, the Zoom screen. You can only vote on the web browser in COVID. Great, and I see that there are a couple of questions around solutions, and we're going to have opportunity to have those conversations around solutions, like does the city have any influence over authority over the school district? Our priority here, just to kind of do a little process mapping, is to talk about what is the critical area, and then our next conversation, which you'll be going into as soon as we finish these, will be about both the actions and the obstacles that face. And if the tech team can make sure that the interpreters are unsilenced, that would be great. Great. So it looks like at 18% offer career development and adult education opportunities beginning in high school to including internships as training is the first priority. Attract and recruit qualified teachers is the second priority, and evaluate how school districts are defined is the third priority. Awesome. So we can go to the next one, which is finance, banking, and industry. The themes that came out of that one were to generate policies which promote accessibility and affordable banking options for people who are traditionally marginalized, construct and promote community educational programs aimed at increasing financial literacy in both youth and adults, initiate and fully fund a significant pool of financial and investment resources that can be equitably accessed by local small businesses, create programs and policies targeting affordable and equitable access to housing, produce and fund educational workshops targeting businesses owned by marginalized communities, enact policies which aim to keep money circulating within West Palm Beach's economy and local businesses. So again, you should toggle over to the Collaborative Arts website and please vote on your top 3 out of 6. And so now you can see we have 2 more to do. So as soon as on the Collaborative Arts, which is a self-transitioning website, you don't have to reload or do anything. When you see the voting options come up, feel free to read through them and vote as we go. Right now, we are focusing on the themes for finance, banking, and industry. We're going to give you all a few more minutes to get your vote in, and then we're going to look at the top priorities. And just to kind of, again, remind you of our process, so we're going to take the top priority in each. You're going to go back into your discussion group, and we're going to continue the conversation. We can get the link one more time in the page. A few people had to jump out and jump back in. We'll get that link to you all shortly. And we will show the top responses each time we close the voting. And just so you know, all of the data, we're going to report at the next West Palm Beach Task Force meeting, which is Tuesday evening, December 8th. And then we will also report it during the subcommittee meetings, which will be posted on the website. Great. So it looks like for financing and banking, the top priority is to create programs and policies targeting affordable and equitable access to housing, followed very closely by construct and promote community educational programs aimed at increasing financial literacy in both youth and adults. And then just a few votes. So all of these, and in fact, the top 4 seem to be equally divided. But the third one is to generate policies which promote accessibility and affordable banking options for people who are traditionally marginalized. So, you know, all these options seem to resonate quite well with, you know, those who voted. And it's an equal distribution. So a lot of all of the above are priorities. So we're gonna go to the next one, which is for health priorities. And so again, out of these 6, we're gonna ask you to vote for the top 3. And the themes are to produce policies aimed at ensuring everyone has equal access to healthcare services, build access to financial resources for healthcare, and again, for traditionally marginalized communities, create educational programs targeted at healthcare information. So I guess establish commission studies and policies on how physical access to healthcare facilities is inequitably distributed, and create action steps on how to improve that access. Promote policies aimed at ensuring equitable access to healthy, affordable food options. Study the effect of environmental injustice on the populations of West Palm Beach, and create actions to address it. So you have 6 options here. Create policies aimed at ensuring equal access, build access to financial resources for healthcare, create educational programs around healthcare, commission studies, enact policies on how physical access to healthcare facilities are inequitable and to mitigate that inequality, promote policies aimed at ensuring access to healthy and affordable food options, and examining the impact of environmental injustice on health. So again, we're going to ask you to vote on those. When we get to a voting level, we will show you all the priorities. So I have to say I am really impressed with the level of information that you all, you know, that the level of thought that you all have put into this. So it looks like, again, so the top one is to produce policies aimed at ensuring everyone has equal access to healthcare services. That is followed by promote policies aimed at ensuring equitable access to healthy, affordable food options. And then the third is build access to financial resources for healthcare aimed at traditionally marginalized communities. Awesome. Thank you all so much for voting on that one. I think our final one is for real estate and housing priorities. And for in the area of real estate and housing, it is provide more accessible information and education on home buying preparedness, home maintenance, and real estate market trends, expand options for decent and affordable housing for both home buyers and renters, mitigate financial barriers like high down payments, and increase funding for prospective home buyers, ensure equitable access to housing appropriate for school-aged children in diverse areas with good school systems, sustainability, transform existing infrastructure to provide additional housing options. So I guess that's create a sustainability plan that transforms existing infrastructure to provide additional housing options. And then finally, initiate dialogue with developers on how they can invest in the community and align with the mayor's vision for a city of opportunity. So again, if you can, for these 6, if you could pick your top 3, and I stated, you know, clearly, I hope you all can see that these have been very rich conversations that have, you know, created, you know, real West Palm Beach specific solutions. And I look forward to seeing the outcome from your second conversations, where you're going to focus on that top priority for each and, you know, continue in a deeper conversation. I'm going to give you all a few more minutes to get your votes in. And as always, Todd, when you think we've hit, you know, we kind of, just so you know, I hate to produce on there, but we kind of watch the voting like popcorn. You know, people are voting, We're going to keep it open because we wanted you to have the opportunity to look over them, contemplate what it means in their vote, and then when it kind of settles down, we show our outcome. Great. So for this one, the top priority is to expand options for decent and affordable housing for both home buyers and renters, followed by mitigate financial barriers such as high down payments and increase funding for prospective home buyers. And then the third highest priority is to initiate dialogue with developers on how they can invest in the community and align with the mayor's vision of a city of opportunity. So we really appreciate, and that was all five, right, Todd? And so then what we're going to do is move you all into our next discussion. And so what we're going to do is switch out between sharing, and we're going to bring back the slide deck for today's presentation. Thank you all for those votes. And as Emma brings up her slide deck, she's sharing, give us a moment. We are going to move into discussion 2. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to move you back into your same groups. And once you're in that group, we're going to ask you to discuss 2 questions with regards to what you heard. And so the first question here, and I apologize, we're going to get that on mute. I'm going to wait because I want to make sure everyone can hear me. I'm going to wait for the tech team to get that muted for us. There we go. So the question is, so for the second one is, and I probably just a little jump, is what you're going to have are 2 questions. And the first question is, looking at that first big priority here, as you can see, and your facilitator will remind you of what that is. Don't worry if you can't remember. What are the most critical actions that need to be taken to move this priority forward in the next year? So when you think about the task force, you think about the subcommittee for that topic area, what would you like to see them do in the next 6 months to a year to move that priority forward, right? And then the second question we're going to be asking you is, thinking about that priority, what do you believe will be the big challenges for accomplishing this priority? What will get in the way, right? So, we're going to ask you to have a deep, rich conversation around that first priority. If you have time, and again, there are no prizes for how many priorities you get through. We want to make sure we get as much information that we can really represent your thoughts and intent to the task force. You can go to the second priority, but, we really want you to have that deep conversation with your facilitators and other individuals in your breakout room around that, at least that first topic. If you have room, you'll go to the second. So this conversation also will be about 25 minutes. So we're going to ask Jason, our Zoom guru, to move you into your groups at this time. And again, so you're going to see the same people that you've seen. No need to do an introduction. And we're going to jump right into the second conversation, which is, looking at both the things you would like to see achieved and the things that you believe will be obstacles. Just like last time, our theme is busily working on the information, reviewing the information that was captured in your breakout groups. And to collect the themes that emerged. And while they're doing that, we're going to turn the program over to Mary James to provide an update on what's happening in your great city. Like I said, I don't think time will permit for questions, but we do have and actually we've kind of swapped that out because we have some questions that the communications department for the city has asked us to make sure we get some answers from you to make sure that they are maximizing their ability to communicate with you in both the information that you want and the methodology of communicating so that you can get that. So without further ado, Mayor James, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Donzell. And again, thanks to everyone who is participating in today's summit. If we were together in person, I would ask you to stand up and give a round of applause to Donzell and his team for bringing together what I think so far has been a fantastic summit. I've been reviewing some of the comments on chat. It looks like people are really devoting the time and energy and getting a lot out of it. So thank you, Donzell, again to you and your team. While the theme team is doing their work, I thought I would take a few minutes to discuss with you and give you some statistics on some of the things we have been doing at the city. Next slide. Next slide. No, next slide. There we go. No, next slide.
Donzell, you're on mute.
Donzell, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. It looks like your slide deck was not inserted into the master slide. So we're going to take 3 minutes to pull that up. Yeah, so give us 30 seconds, man. I sincerely apologize.
All right.
Give me 1 second. So, man, while we're doing this, let me ask you, if you want, you can, well, I don't want to do that. Let me just put it on hold. Let's get this taken care of.
I can do it without the deck.
If you could do it out the deck, that would be great. I apologize. We'll make sure the deck gets put onto the West Palm Beach website as well as sent out to everyone. So again,
all right. Well, let's proceed in the interest of time. If you've heard me speak at all, you know that.
My COVID test, and they are negative.
All right, I'm hearing. Okay, you know that one of the themes of my administration, and I campaigned on it, is building a community of opportunity for all. And what that means is, I don't care what your zip code is in your city, where you live. We want West Palm Beach to be a city where you can pursue and achieve your dreams. And so today I'm going to touch on some of the key initiatives in support of this vision, including but not limited to public safety, equal opportunity and equity, COVID-19 response, and some of our real estate and housing initiatives. With respect to public safety, I've always said that public safety is job one. And no matter where you live in our city, you deserve to live in a safe, secure neighborhood. So in that interest, in June of 2019, I appointed Chief Frank Adderley as the new police chief. And I am proud of the job that Chief Adderley, along with his new leadership, has done. He has gone out of his way to build trust between law enforcement and the community. All right, looks like my deck is somewhere around, but you're a little bit ahead of me. Can we go back? Who's controlling it? There we go. There we go. There we go. The chief works tirelessly to improve the relationship between the police and the community. He's always out there. Everyone knows him. And if you've heard him speak, you probably have his personal cell number. And that's just the way he is. He's committed to increasing the dialogue and transparency to have a better understanding of racial discrimination within the criminal justice system. If you know anything about him, you know he grew up in the streets in Fort Lauderdale, in some of the poorest neighborhoods there, the Sistrunk area, and grew up from that environment to become chief of police in Fort Lauderdale. And as you can see on the slide, I'm very proud of some of the statistics that have been achieved under my administration. Homicides are down 50%. Crime versus people is down 23%. And crime versus property is down 10%. But it's not just about decreasing crime, although that's the major component of law enforcement, but it really is building relationships with the community. Obviously, if there's an overutilization of use of force, that is going to deteriorate that relationship. So even prior to the chief coming on, West Palm Beach has adopted a number of policies to limit the use of force in unnecessary situations. We've banned chokeholds and strangleholds. There is mandatory de-escalation training going on. Warnings before shootings are required. It is required that all means of interaction prior to shooting be exhausted before a shot is fired. There is a duty to intervene if a police officer sees someone else doing something that is inappropriate. We ban shooting at moving vehicles, and there is a use of force continuum that the police are trained on. And we require that all use of forces be reported. Under Chief Adderley's leadership, he established the first use of force review board in the agency's history. Next slide, please. So I also established early in my administration an Office of Equal Opportunity, which is designed to ensure that the city itself has fair business practices. I appointed Frank Hayden, who I believe is attending the task force today, in April 2019 to serve as the head of that office. Frank comes with a stellar background. He's the president of the Black Chamber of Commerce. He's been with the city since 2013, previously serving as a procurement director, and served over the South Florida Water Management District for a number of years in that capacity as well. Frank and I have known each other. I know his heart. Notwithstanding the fact he's from Detroit, he's a good man. He's a good man. But no, in all seriousness, he has done a tremendous job. And you could see there that the OEO is responsible for coordinating programs that foster workforce development, business development, and professional education and training. OEO welcomes small, minority, and women-owned businesses to be active participants in the city's process. And one of the things that I charged Frank with was to, and procurement, he was, obviously in charge of overseeing procurement, making sure that the proper numbers were achieved. But I wanted us to be more proactive as we try to pursue minority and women-owned businesses and small businesses and introduce them to business opportunities in our city. And Frank has done a wonderful job. The city has exceeded a small business goal of 15% in the third quarter of last year. Payments to small businesses for the third quarter were $3,115,609, or 16.3% of the total dollars expended for competitive contracts. Year-to-date payments, and this were to small business enterprises, $10,475,811, or 19% of all dollars expended for businesses. The total number of SBEs, 355, the total number of minority and women-owned businesses, 91, and veteran businesses, 8. So we are working to build equity one step at a time, and it's important for all residents, inclusive, no matter your gender, cultural background, or abilities, to have an equitable opportunity to do business with the city and to earn a competitive wage. I'm proud of what we've achieved thus far. It does not mean that we don't want to, we will continue to have our shirt sleeves rolled up and continue to do the hard work. And I encourage all business owners to learn more about business opportunities with the city, and Frank has done a wonderful job. Next slide, please. Now, as we all know, this year has brought unprecedented challenges in so many aspects. With so many people facing health and financial burdens this year, the city was actually the first governmental entity to get money on the street to its small businesses. We also wanted to work to allocate supplies and testing throughout the city. We established very early in the COVID period free testing sites throughout West Palm Beach, establishing collaborations between West Palm Beach Fire Department, Healthcare District, Quantum Foundation, and Found Care. Through those collaborative efforts, more than 2,500 West Palm Beach residents were tested, and I made sure that the teams went out to hotspot zip codes throughout all of West Palm Beach. As you all know, the pandemic has had a disproportionately adverse effect on, unfortunately, people of color. And so we wanted to make sure that, even though the testing site was open out at the ballpark of the Palm Beaches out west. We wanted to make sure we took testing to the community, since it's not always easy for the community to get to the testing sites. Next slide, please. So that was testing and addressing the healthcare aspect of it. As you all know, COVID has wrecked the economy. It has had a tremendously devastating effect on small businesses. So as I mentioned before, we were able to get money on the street very early. We got microloans out for small businesses shortly after the pandemic hit. We approved 43 applications for microloans for a total of $403,914. That's $403,914 to 43 small businesses. Our Housing and Community Development Department, in collaboration with our partners at the county level, also provided rental and utility assistance to ensure that our residents were able to maintain a roof over their heads, as well as the basic necessities. Some statistics there. Rental and utility assistance, we got out on the street $2,251,429.94. That's $2,251,429.94. We distributed over 500,000 pounds of food to local nonprofit organizations. Our Department of Housing and Community Development also helped West Palm Beach residents with food stamps and unemployment applications. Food stamp applications, there are 150 residents who we helped with those applications, and that number continues to rise. Unemployment applications, and I hope that no one under the sound of my voice now has had to go through that process, but those unemployment applications were intentionally designed to discourage people from applying. And so we had staff sit down, devoted staff to the task of sitting down and helping people complete those unemployment applications. Next slide, please. With respect to real estate and housing, about a year ago in my first State of the City address, I announced a new initiative, which is to build 300 units of affordable housing within the 3 years. And my view is everyone has a right to sleep comfortably in adequate housing versus sleeping under a bridge. Under my tenure, we've established and built Georgian Gardens Apartments, which is affordable housing for seniors. We established a home at Tamarin, which is affordable housing for the developmentally disabled. So far, since I made that announcement of that initiative, we have 93 units up and constructed, and 36 more coming soon, and we're well on our way to achieving that number of 300. On December 14th, we'll be cutting the ribbon on the Alice Moore Apartments, which are affordable housing for individuals living with behavioral health concern. In addition to that, because it's not only about providing housing, but it's providing neighborhoods that are attractive and that are clean and that are safe. So one of the first things I did was establish my Neighborhoods First initiative, which is headed up ably by Tiffany David, who you've heard from earlier today. Tiffany's office receives and tracks community concerns and requests from residents. They identify appropriate city resources to help close unresolved issues, as well as improve community relations and customer service. And we are continuing to beef up that team because, as government, our obligation is to serve our constituents. And we know that the 822 number that is often referred to is not working as efficiently as we would like. So in the next year, stay tuned for more changes to our customer service response operation. Under Tiffany's capable leadership, we established Operation Clean Streets. This is a campaign that helps curb rampant code violations throughout our neighborhoods, as well as working on stopping illegal dumping. And the first step was obviously education, where we obviously want to let people know that that will not be tolerated in our city. And then, of course, moving to enforcement and prevention. We ramped up enforcement and prosecution efforts recently, and that resulted in our sanitation and code enforcement divisions and the West Palm Beach Police Department recording 345 instances of illegal dumping. It doesn't mean that there was more dumping going on. It just means that we were more intentional about catching those who were violating our illegal dumping laws. Compared to the year before, there were only 30 instances where we caught people dumping. So that more intentional effort to catch people, and again, this is designed to make the neighborhoods cleaner and safer. Resulted in fines of more than $98,000 between January 2020 and November 1st of 2020. Also, early this year, voters approved the 2020 Parks Bond, which will bring much needed repairs to 22 City of West Palm Beach parks. I believe that parks can be a tremendous asset to a neighborhood. And I want to make sure that the parks we have in our city are safe and secure. I want the parks to be available for young families and children and not for those who have ill intent. And so my police department knows that our parks are should be a key component when they're exercising community policing. Now, the Parks Bond is going to be repaid from ad valorem taxes. It's not an additional tax or fee. And it replaces a Parks Bond, which expired in September of this year. Well-maintained parks help increase and maintain property values. And then the other thing is I appointed Jose Tego as my Hispanic community liaison. As you know, Jose has been with the city for over 20 years and has been interacting with our residents and local neighbors. I wanted to expand his role. So he now is charged with reaching into the Hispanic and Latino community and making sure that those communities feel that they have a voice and an ally with the city administration. And as part of those outreach efforts, we recently launched the city's first ever Spanish language newsletter, which is called Que Pasa West Palm Beach. That is Que Pasa West Palm Beach. And that newsletter will inform residents in Spanish of the latest city news, events, resources, and policy actions happening right here in our city. In addition, our main City of West Palm Beach webpage is fully translatable through the web browser. Next slide, please. And, a more recent accomplishment, but something I'm equally proud of, is the establishment of the Racial and Ethnic Equality Task Force. And that is what brings us here today. That group's mission is to identify and help address issues of racial and ethnic equity through education about racial and ethnic inequities in our city. Where have we fallen short? And we have heard some tremendous historical information from the group of elders that we interviewed, as well as some of the statistics that Tiffany walked us through. And West Palm Beach is not, its history has not been perfect when it comes to race relations, and we have to be very intentional and very honest about that. And that's what one element of the task force work. The other is certainly to look at best practices, and then to come back to the commission and the mayor with policy and funding recommendations to address racial and ethnic inequity in the city. And I'm very proud of our two co-chairs that I appointed, Michelle Diffenderfer, who is a very well-respected attorney in town, and Patrick Franklin, who is head of the local urban league. And under their very capable leadership, I am quite confident that the work of the task force will be well received and well respected by the commission and the community when they make their specific recommendations. The establishment of the task force itself has garnered some attention and from around the nation. I think Tiffany alluded to the Unum Fellowship that I was awarded because of putting this task force together, which will bring some fiscal resources to the work that we're doing. And also the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative has recognized the work we're doing with the task force. They've accepted me into their class, and this enables us to get a tremendous amount of data and helps us to be more nimble as we are establishing and devoting practices. So again, just a quick summary of some of the things that the city administration has already done to make West Palm Beach a community of opportunity for all. By no means is this all the work that we have to do. And indeed, what we're doing today with this summit, what we will be doing through the task force and looking at those recommendations will only enhance our ability to build a city that is indeed a community of opportunity for all. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much for your time today. And I will promise you that this will not be the last action summit that occurs in our city. This has been such a tremendous day. Hopefully you all have enjoyed it. Looks like from the comments, you all have enjoyed it. And it's you, the community, who are participating and devoting your time and attention on a beautiful Saturday here in West Palm Beach, Florida, to help us become a better city. So stay in touch. My contact information is there, and enjoy the rest of the day's program. Thank you again for all your efforts.
Thank you, Mayor James, and we really appreciate all the wealth of information that you provided. And so what we're going to do right now is, the communications team would like some information from you around how they can keep you informed, as the mayor indicated. And so what's happening, keep you informed about what's happening in your city. So we have 2 questions that your facilitators are going to give you. We're going to quickly move you into your breakouts to answer those quick questions. We're going to give you about 5 or 10 minutes to let them know how you would like to be communicated and what are the subject areas you would like to be communicated for communication to be around. And then we're going to bring you back so that we can look at the results of your second discussion. Because like the first time, we're going to move rather quickly so that we can, finish as close to on time as possible. We're going to look at those, vote on those, and then give you some samples of the vote on the actions that you want to see taken, and then give you samples of some of the obstacles that you think would get in the way. So Jason, who is the Deputy Information Officer, Assistant Chief Information Officer for the city, if you can move everyone into their breakout room so that we can quickly get those questions answered. And as soon as the theme team says, hey, we're ready to go, we're going to pull you out. So if you don't get the answer in your breakout, and go ahead and start that now, Jason, while I'm talking. If you don't get to do it there, you can do it in the chat. Okay, so it looks like everyone is back now. So we are going to look at the themes that came out of your second conversation at this time. So as they bring those up. So again, you can go ahead and toggle over to your browser with the collaborative arts. And just in case, we're going to put that in the link one more time so that you can click on that. And so you should know our rhythm and cadence. Now you're going to go over there and vote, on the themes that are going to be reported. So if we can pull that up, that'll be great. So again, you can focus on, if you have to choose between Zoom right now, leave Zoom open, you can hear my voice, but focus on the collaborative art page so that you can vote. So with regards to criminal justice, when we think about, the priority of creating opportunities for the community to engage in policing, when we say, what are some of the actions that you would like to see happen in the next 6 months to a year, you can vote on these. So it's have the mayor and the city officials communicate and engage more directly with the community when making decisions that impact criminal justice, conduct a needs assessment to find out who needs to be involved in the community transparency and review board, ensure that those who sit on a community transparency or review oversight board include people from marginalized communities, residents with disabilities, students, union members, police officers, and people diverse in terms of where they live and in terms of their socioeconomic and cultural background. Standardize racial equity training for police by partnering with racial equity experts and review and update policing procedures. collect and publicize more racial data, such as traffic stops, data, and body camera recordings to get a more accurate picture of what is going on and improve accountability. Learn what other communities and cities are doing and borrow their best practices around racial equity and criminal justice. So, we're going to try to get to at least 60% of or 50% of the 123 participants we still have. And thank you all so much for sticking with us for the whole day. But we're going to ask you to go ahead and vote now on your top three, and then we will be able to show you the results. So we're going to continue to move through these rather quickly because the remainder of our agenda is just to kind of have the chairs give us the next steps in this process. And of course, the mayor will close us out. So we're having people vote on these themes. All right, we're going to close the voting and we're going to show you the outcome. So it looks like the top one is to ensure that those who sit on these the Transparency Oversight Review Board include a variety of walks of life. So we have individuals with disabilities, students, union members, etc. Number two is to standardize racial equity training for police officers, and that is tied with collect and publicize racial data. So the fourth one, just in case they combine or is have the mayor and city officials communicate more directly with the community. Awesome, thank you for that, theme team. And now we're going to go to the next one, which is, as we pull it, and I apologize. So please make sure you will have the opportunity to vote. And again, all of this information will be provided on the website, and you will have opportunity to provide feedback. So in order for us to take time, we're going to we're not leave voting open as long. So for criminal justice challenges, is this for? I guess this is for the second priority opportunity through policing. It was increased police unions, police departments, and police themselves may not want to have extra eyes on. Oh, these are the challenges. Thank you. I apologize. So the challenges some of the challenges, and you're not voting on these, was that the unions, departments, and police themselves may not want to have extra eyes. So how do you address that resistance? That resources are hard to find unless people, know what's available and how to ask for them. So that could be a difficulty. Another one is it's going to be difficult to recruit community members to participate in the review board. People who have the time from those different walks of life. Lack of funding, and of course, the community not being clear about policing process. Thank you so much for those difficulties. And again, everything that you shared will be communicated to the subcommittee. Now, you will have a chance to vote. So all those who said, hey, I didn't get a chance to vote and got cut off too quickly, go to the website now and start voting, even while I'm talking. So with regards to education, workforce development, action priorities, for the priority of offer career development and adult education opportunities beginning in high school, including internships and training, you said some of the actions you would like to see is to create partnerships between West Palm Beach business community and schools, teach youth about career options at a young age beginning in kindergarten, inform youth and adults about career tracks and opportunities that don't require college education, like trade jobs, begin to access untapped funding resources in the private and public sectors to support West Palm Beach schools and education, develop and reestablish and redevelop vocational programs and ensure said programs are overseen by the appropriate entities, advertise opportunities for vocational and trade jobs in the schools, establish ways to share education-related information between the private and public sectors. So open up those communications. So please, on the engage covision.com website, you should be able to vote. We're going to ask you again to vote for your top three. And we put the link to the voting there. You do not have to click the link again. If you're on that site, it automatically moves you to the next one. You just simply have to toggle between the screens. Again, we're asking you to vote for your top 3. So we're going to give you another 30 seconds or so to vote. Okay, so from that, we have the highest action item that people would like to see, and it was a quick shift there, is developing and reestablishing and redeveloping vocational programming and ensure that said programs are overseen by the appropriate entities, followed by create partnerships between West Palm Beach business community and the schools. And then the third one, top idea, is to inform youth and adults about career tracks and opportunities that do not require college. Some of the challenges that you all began to identify were the fact that there's a stigma that exists around trade jobs and other careers that do not require education. How do we remove that? That many students and young people have not developed basic financial skills such as budgeting so that they can get back and forth to jobs. Lack of awareness about or access to funding for educational programs around training. Understanding that the world views of non-marginalized communities dominate educational philosophies and practices, right? And so, and how do we improve those worldviews? And so some students are told by school employees that they should not pursue college education. So while we absolutely want people to think of vocation, it doesn't mean that every student should, think of that. We want to encourage students to also seek the right education for their future. So these can be some of the barriers to achieving success. We're going to get you to the next topic area, policy area that you can vote on. There we go. And so this is with regards to finance, banking, and industry actions. The priority was to create programs and policies targeting affordable and equitable access to housing. So I don't know if it's housing or I think this is the housing one. So we're gonna, but for that priority, the solutions were ensure people know where to access educational resources around housing, to create more community involved. And again, you're going to vote on the top 3 here. I want to make sure I make that clear. And I apologize if I seem like I'm pushing you all a little faster. I want you to have the chance to read them. But we want to make sure we get through these because many people are planning to leave us. So, so again, stimulate direct communication with partner banks in the form of a community forum or town hall. Promote and support housing developers that are local to West Palm Beach community. Create an all-encompassing approach to tackle racial disparities in access to housing. Promote policies that prioritize small minority contractors and local developers when redeveloping the area. Focus on rehabilitation of existing housing to make it attractive and affordable for prospective residents. So it sounds like they were asked to address both at once. Interesting. Thank you for that feedback. So please vote on these here. We want to make sure that you have the opportunity. So yeah, I apologize that the task force members kind of altered the direction of the conversation. So we want to, please vote on the top 3 again. Around to, which ones would you like to see, actions focused on by the subcommittees and the task force in the next 6 months to the year. So giving you a chance to vote in the Engage CoVision website. And it looks like the top one was to create an all-encompassing approach to tackle racial disparities and access to housing was the first choice, focus on rehabilitation of existing housing to make it attractive and affordable to prospective residents. And the third action was to create more community-involved activities and programs on affordable housing. So we appreciate this, and we're going to transition to the obstacles that you all kind of identified, and some of the things that, and so this is specific to banking and financing, and it said, obstacles would be banks are reluctant to take on the risk of new customers and provide financial assistance or loans. People have traditionally been disempowered or disengaged from existing programs and policies, so they may not be willing to even to join those programs. Permits are not too expensive, and there are not too many industrial roadblocks, someone says, so there may not be any roadblocks, right? And banks are not often reminded or mindful about having preconceived notions about people. So some of the implicit biases of those who are providing from working for the banks, how that impacts the opportunity for change. Thank you so much for that feedback. And now if we can go to the next one. And again, we will make efforts, and I apologize if we're moving too fast. We're already beyond the 2 o'clock. We will make efforts to give people opportunity to give their feedback and input. We're going to ask you to go to the link and look at health actions. Click on the Engage Co-Vision. For those who can stay, we're going to slow it down a little bit. We have 100 and so participants here. If you can stick around to vote, we're going to ask you to do so. So for this, the health actions, which was produce policies aimed at ensuring everyone has equal access to healthcare services. Some of the actions you would like to see taken towards that priority are to examine the steps needed to ensure healthcare infrastructure is accessible to all residents, no matter their race, age, sex, or financial status. Build communities' desire for greater educational opportunities on how patients can access their healthcare. So build an interest, let them know that the information is available. Generate policies aimed at prioritizing affordable healthcare. Utilize existing partnerships or create new partnerships with community organizations to educate people on how to access healthcare, and create mobile services to address medical needs in communities that lack easily accessible healthcare. So things like mobile dentistry, mobile breast exams. So, those mobile services that can happen in the community to overcome transportation barriers. Awesome ideas. So now if you could please vote on your top 3 that came out. We're going to give you a little time to vote, or extra time to vote. You have 5 options. You're voting on your top 3. And so what we do is, like I said before, if we see that you all have the voting has kind of stopped, we go to the next slide and we present. So looks like we've kind of slowed down. And so the top action that people would like to see is to examine the steps needed to ensure healthcare infrastructure is accessible to all residents, no matter their race, age, sex, or financial status. That is tied with, creating mobile services to address medical needs that can be in the community that lack easy access to healthcare. And then the third is to generate policies aimed at prioritizing affordable healthcare for citizens of West Palm Beach. So thank you all for those. Now let's look at some of the challenges that you all saw at achieving this first priority. And again, concerns around cultural differences, historical mistrust, and other barriers that patients may have who are from marginalized communities when they're trying to access healthcare. Lack of plan for hospitals that may be facing economic shortfalls due to pressures from dealing with COVID, so just not having the resources. Community members are not well informed about existing resources, so just not being aware. And of course, another barrier or what may prevent success is unequal access to healthy, affordable food in poor communities, resulting in poor health statuses of individuals in the community. So I think we have one more that we need to vote on. And this one is for real estate and housing action. Right? And so some of those options that was some of the actions around the priority of expanding options for decent and affordable housing for both home buyers and renters. And again, you can begin voting now, is to develop a comprehensive plan that includes a preliminary review on the current state of the housing market, identifies the populations in need, provides community consultation, and has a measurable end goal. The next one is increased funding availability for quality affordable housing, such as trust funds and federal and private loans and grants. Third is consult best, or the next one is to consult best practices and successful models for expanding quality affordable housing. Educate the community on the definition of affordable housing as well as the potential impact on the community. So looking at how does the median income impact the metrics around affordable housing. Make a concerted effort to beautify the landscape and streetscape of all public properties within West Palm Beach. Enforce accountability on rent increases and ensure rents are based off on individual income. So I know that, so again, I understand that everything that your group recommended may not be here. Again, this was from the first vote around which priorities, but I promise you everything that you submitted is being collected and everything you submitted will be presented to the subcommittees specific to real estate and housing actions. So we encourage you to watch the subcommittee meetings in Zoom, and if you do not hear us speak to what you talked about, we will make sure throughout this process you have multiple ways to communicate. And while I was having that conversation, I hope that you all are voting because we want to get these priorities in place. We want to figure out what action or for this priority would you like to see happen. And I love the fact that you all are even having the conversation still in the chat. So let's go to the vote. And so for this priority, and again, there are several other priorities, but for this, which was voted as the top priority by the group, the actions that you would like to see happen first is to increase funding or the top action that you that resonated with you was to increase funding availability for quality affordable housing such as trust funds and federal and private loans and grants. Second was to develop a comprehensive plan that includes a preliminary review on the current state of housing, the housing market, indications of populations in need, community consultation, and measurable end goals. And the third was to consult best practices and successful models for expanding quality affordable housing. Now let's take a look at some of the things you all identified as potential barriers to achieving this priority. And so some of the barriers around when you talk about options for decent and affordable housing could be lack of support from the broader community, for those who don't need the housing, lack of follow through with proposed ideas. Individuals' ability to meet income requirements can be difficult since income restrictions sometimes can be unrealistic. There's no sustainable source of funding given limited resources. Housing locations are not close to public transportation, schools, and places to work. And then sustained innovations and collaborations with other jurisdictions can prove to make this difficult. So those are just a sample of some of the obstacles. And of course, we have the full amount. So we thank you all for that information. And again, we're going to take all of this data, we're going to present it to the subcommittee, and we're going to support them in creating action plans that will demonstrate that they've heard, that they will move on the things that you have presented. So at this time, what we're going to do, thank you for that. And I think that rounded out this conversation, right, Todd? So I think we can go back to our slide deck. Yes, excellent. What we're going to do is, we've read through the themes. What we're going to do now is really turn it over to the co-chairs to talk about next steps. And then I think we have the mayor closing us out. So actually, I think it's the other way around. I apologize. We have the mayor, give some final remarks. The the co-chairs will talk about next steps. And then we're going to close this out with a survey asking you all to talk about what did you like about today and what can we do to improve it. So to that end, I think we are ready to, Mayor, if you're there, actually, we can turn it over to you. And I apologize, we had just to be transparent to everyone, we had a couple of different changes depending on time. And I think the rule was if the time got too short, we would give it straight to the co-chairs for them to talk about next steps, and then we would, close it out with the mayor. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Diffenderfer and co-chair Franklin, Patrick Franklin, to give us next steps.
Okay. Thank you, Donzell. Well, I think we are very excited to see all of the information that came out of today's summit. I was bouncing around from room to room and really appreciate everyone's participation and information. We learned a lot today. Looking forward to Donzell's team pulling it all together in a report that will come to the task force. We have our next task force meeting this coming week on the 8th, and we'll start immediately talking about the issues that have been brought to our attention by the community. And I know that will then continue into the work of the subcommittees as they move forward through the rest of this month and into January.
Michelle, I agree with everything you said. I just want to thank everybody that came out today and stayed with us throughout the 4+ hours that we've been engaged so far. The information was priceless. We got a lot of good information to move forward on, and I really just want to thank everybody for participating. And stay in tune with us and stay in touch with us as we go through this process. We need your help now more than ever. So thank you so much. Have a great day. Stay healthy.
Thank you, Michelle and Patrick. Mayor, over to you.
Thank you very much. Again, I want to just echo the comments of the co-chairs. Thanks to everyone who stayed and participated. When I thought about what I wanted out of today's summit, I was looking for an opportunity for individuals in the community who could hear from each other their different experiences and also hear from each other different viewpoints, while simultaneously also feeling heard about the lessons learned from their life experiences. Now, I wanted a process that truly engaged everyone who participated and made it very clear that this voice is important. I believe, and I hope you agree with me, that we did that, but this is only the beginning. And I know that some may think that 200 people is not enough in a city of 115,000, but these are 200 people who were engaged, and I will take that anytime. The work that we have before us, the work that the task force has before them, is going to take more than one or two conversations, but this is a tremendous step in the right direction. And I know the task force will take this information to heart as they engage in their work. So I ask that each of you that came today will continue to be a part of the conversation and frankly, continue to be a part of the solution. And thank you so much for your participation. Please be safe, wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands, and thank you again for participating this today.